Won't you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes?
And we've got Kevin in, is it Ontario?
Yes, Ontario, Canada. How are you guys today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. First, I just want to say I appreciate that you guys allow both sides to call in, because I am in the opposition to what you guys believe. I'm a diehard believer in the Bible from cover to cover.
We actually prefer Christian callers, so you're getting you're getting favoritism.
Yeah, I'd rather not get any atheist calls.
Oh, good. Now, oh boy, I don't even know where to start here, because I mean, I've seen so many proofs that the Bible has come through to be something that we can believe in as truth, like you know, prophecies that have been fulfilled before the world's eyes in our time.
If you want, we can open that up. If you want, we can open that up and unpack that and maybe talk about a prophecy.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you called in about something specific, and just a reminder, there's only like 23 minutes left in the show, so I want to make sure you get, your point when we get to discuss it a bit.
Okay, I'll try to be quick then. I mean, in Isaiah 66:8, a nation will be born in a day. That happened on May 14th, 1948, when in the UN it was voted that Israel be recognized as a state from that day forward.
How do you know that's what Isaiah was talking about?
Because of the fact that it happened, and we've seen the evidence. It happened in 1948.
No, you've got a prediction that a nation will be formed in a day, and then you go out and you pick the nation that you think was formed in a day, and you draw a connection between the two. I'm asking for what's the justification between the connection, because some might say, July 4, 1776. I mean, if you want to get so insular about, we're going to pick. I mean, aren't all nations, as soon as their respective declarations are signed and stuff, don't they have an official day that this is the day? So in any case, even if it was the only one we had an example of, I want to know what makes you think that Isaiah was specifically talking about this one?
It's a good point. Perhaps I might not be able to answer that, except for I could put in all the other ones that say all the things that go along with it, like it would be left a desolate desert for many years, which it was. No one would be able to get anything to grow there, but when the Jews get there and the place flourishes miraculously, well, they helped too.
Have you been there?
I know that they are the leading producer of fruits to the world in competition with their surrounding nations over there. I would call that a Bible prophecy fulfillment. Because
okay.
I live in Canada. I've bought oranges that say product of Israel. It said they would fill the world with fruit.
Okay. I don't have information in front of me about whether or not Israel provides more oranges than, let's say, Florida or not. And I don't really care, because when we're talking about these things, here's the thing with predictions, which is the word I'll use instead of prophecy, because I think prophecy carries baggage that you can't even begin to support. But if you make a prediction, how do you go about, what are the requirements for us to determining whether or not that prediction comes true? For one thing, it needs to be specific. It needs to be fulfillable by only a single occurrence. It needs to be something that isn't prone to interpretation at all. And it needs to be something that is non-trivial. So, for example, if I go in to a restaurant and we're going to El Arroyo tonight, I'll order chicken flautas. Am I making a prediction when the waiter brings me this? And I'm asking that because there are many occasions where you have a quote-unquote prediction that is public that many people are consistently working towards fulfilling. And so, in particular, with these predictions that are about the state of Israel, there were many people over many years that were actively working to fulfill it. And I don't see that there's anything miraculous about. There's nothing more miraculous about saying, hey, we're going to have a nation state of Israel, and then it ends up being true, then, hey, I'd like chicken flautas, and the waiter brings them to me.
Well, I don't know that humans would have the power to make it happen, especially after the Jews being on the brink of extinction from Hitler and the Nazis, and then they bounce back and get their nation. That's a miracle. That's pretty amazing.
Humans made it happen. This was an act of the United Nations we're talking about here. How are you attributing this to a god?
Okay, but it wasn't the Jews. It was out of their power.
Okay. So the United Nations is miraculous, not God.
Yeah, and the United Nations doesn't like that there's a God. I don't think they meant for it to happen. Okay, I'm giving you my opinion here.
You realize that the United Nations is made up of a plurality of nations, many of whom, as a matter of fact, all of them except for the United States were formed with religious ideas. We were the first secular nation state.
Well, there are a lot of religious nations, yes.
That's informative to me. Thank you. But, I mean, there's more. I mean, you know, they got there, they were attacked by surrounding nations, outnumbered army personnel, 80-1, and they miraculously won. When Hebrew hadn't even been revived yet, they're all speaking different languages, coming from other countries. How are they supposed to put together an army and defeat, you know, 5 attacking nations that were ready and established? Within the first week they got there, and they won. It's amazing. It is a miracle from God.
Okay. I don't see it as a miracle. And I don't know enough history about the specifics to go into it, but I don't see that it's a miracle. I don't know where you get that justification. But what I had here was that you called in to provide scientific evidence of a global flood.
Okay, sure, yeah. It is easy to tell that, and it's been told by different creation scientists, and I will say specifically
there are no such thing, by the way, as
he brought so much to the world to see, and his stuff is amazing, and to turn a blind eye to it when he gives you the evidence. Layers of rock, sedimentary rock, that means settled by water. Simple enough right there. Like he says, you put water and dirt in a jar, shake it up, and it'll settle out in its densities of the different layers of what, you know, the densities of the rock. And you can see these layers all over the world, and trees running through different layers of them. The trees being there is evidence of a global catastrophe.
Yeah, no, it's actually not. Well, it's not evidence of a global flood. I actually recommend that you stop by talkorigins.org. They have an index that addresses pretty much every creationist claim. Even a lot of Christians and Christian groups don't even attempt to make the claim of a global flood because it's such an absurd claim. First of all, you'd have to account for where the water came from and where it went. But I'm sure that, you know, you can just say God miraculously made water and God miraculously made water disappear. The geological column doesn't actually support this. The ice cores that we've taken don't show any signs. They go back 40,000 years. They don't show any signs of a global flood. There are civilizations that survived from the time of the dated, you know, the time that the flood's dated to, before and after, that don't seem to notice at all. And if you're going to argue for a global flood where God wiped out everybody except for a single family of 8, even without going to any science, even if we just stuck to your own Bible that you like so much, if you follow the timeline of the Bible, 150 years after this flood, there's a civilization that is big enough that they, and have already seemingly forgotten about this God who saved their 8 ancestors 150 years ago, that they're building a Tower of Babel. That's absurd. There's no way a population could grow that fast, and even if it could, it's absurd. It reminds me of the story of the Israelites and wandering in the desert for 40 years and stuff, for which there's no archaeological evidence support for. But you've got this claim where the Israelites they're witness to all of these horrible plagues, and then God miracles the water so that they can walk across on dry land, and he leads them along by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, and feeds them manna from heaven, and leads them on towards a mountain, and Moses disappears for 40 days, and they're like, screw that God, let's make a new one. How crazy is that? The Bible doesn't make any sense on its own. And when you start taking a look at the science, which is, you know, first of all, you said creation science, it's not science, and creation scientists, you may find scientists who are creationists, but there's no scientific evidence supporting creationism. So when you actually look at what actual geologists have to say, for example, none of them are accepting anything like a global flood, because we know too much about different ages of mountains, the different ways things are formed, the fact that the flood would cause problems with plant species not surviving, with diseases not surviving, the fact that we have different freshwater and seawater fishes. The entire claim is absolutely absurd. And there are, in fact, scientific explanations for things like trees that cross strata. And the geological column is not an example of sedimentary laydown as if it came from a single flood. I mean, it's just, and the answers are actually out here. I mean, these are things that have been raised. You know, granted, I don't have an encyclopedia right in front of me, and I'm not an actual geologist or a scientist of any type. But a quick Google search in 20 or 30 minutes at like talkorigins.org will give you the actual science on this and the reason why these claims don't stand.
Okay, well, you said a lot there. You mentioned where all the water came from. I do know the Bible says the fountains of the deep broke open, and these break marks are still in the ocean today.
How do you know what you... Well, Okay, go ahead, continue.
You used to be able to buy globes in a store that would have them on it. All of a sudden, they've disappeared. I've noticed you
Oh
can't
my
buy them
God.
anymore. And I believe that's because...
We're talking
my
plate
God.
tectonics is what we're talking about.
Okay, first of
No
all,
kidding, but they put it on
do
the
you
globe for a
realize?
reason, didn't they? They must have known that those big, giant cracks in the ocean were there. They are there.
Yes, they are there. They're still on maps. There's one of them, the Marianas Trench is the deepest one. The thing is, I don't know where you're getting this nonsense that it doesn't appear on globes anymore. You're kind of, offering up this global conspiracy among scientists to hide the truth. Doesn't that sound crazy?
Well, no, I only say it because I've seen the evidence of it. I have a globe. I bought one, and I'm like, where do you get the ones with the break in it? The cracks.
Buy
in
a
the
better
ocean?
globe.
You can't get them anymore.
Go to Google Earth.
Okay.
But the things that there's nobody hiding anything. There's nobody trying to downplay. What's happening is people are learning, first of all, that we've made a lot of mistakes in the past, and these things that you're calling breaks with the waters coming from the deep, that concept has been entirely debunked. Because first of all, the idea that the rocks were floating on a shell is absurd. They would have actually sunk. But the breaks that you're talking about are due to tectonic plate shift on an Earth that's constantly moving. I mean, like this much about what's actually going on, and you're specifically picking the bits that seem to match what you already believe. Scientists, on the other hand, say, hey, we don't know. Is this true or is this not true? Let's follow the evidence where it goes. You're cherry-picking bits of evidence and ignoring all the other evidence, and then inventing conspiracies like amongst map makers to change the globes that we put up. I don't know. Buy a better globe.
Okay, that's fine. I've heard your argument. We could be here for a long time talking about scientific details. But let me mention this one, and I know you're going to say it's been debunked as well. But I agree with the evolution scientists on one thing. They suspected, before they landed on the moon, that the dust would be very, very deep. They suspected that their machines would sink into it. And I agree with them if we were millions of years old. But when they got there and found out that it was 3/4 of an inch deep, indicating that the universe is only under 10,000 years old.
Kevin, I'm going to ask
evidence.
Kevin.
How could you guys laugh? I just gave it to you right there.
Kevin, I'm going to ask you something, and I'm doing this not to insult you, but to try and save us time. Are you just calling in to prank call us?
Absolutely not. This is all evidence I just laid out for you.
Then I'd highly
turning a blind eye is what you're doing.
Kevin, then I'd highly recommend that you go to answersingenesis.org, which is like, are you familiar with Answers in Genesis?
I've seen it a couple times, yeah, not in detail.
Sure. Even they list the moon dust argument on a list of arguments we think creationists shouldn't use. Even some of the most batshit crazy creationists who create museums with humans coexisting with baby T-Rexes say that you shouldn't use the moon dust argument because it is utterly vapid when it comes to scientific evidence. It is one of the worst possible arguments.
I don't see how it could be because
well,
tell me
that's
this,
part
how
of the
come Neil
problem.
Armstrong was expected to just go up and stick the American flag in the dust when he had to use rocks, and it surprised him? They all suspected that their machines were going to sink into the dust and never be seen and heard from again, and they were very wrong.
Why would you think there'd be so much dust there?
Oh, because of millions of years of accumulated dust collection.
Where's it going to come from?
Meteors bouncing, banging into each other, flying by. It's
the big meteors melt the rocks and things.
Here, Kevin, I'm going to do you a favor since you haven't actually gone. I went to answersingenesis.org right here, and I have their page up on the moon dust. This is a pro-creationist and even a pro-young Earth creationist site, by the way. Only a thin layer of dust covers the moon's surface. However, this does not prove a young age for the moon. Before the Apollo lunar missions, a few scientists had predicted that a yard's-thick layer of dust should be settled on the moon over billions of years. Those predictions got a lot of press, yet further satellite measurements of dust in space indicated a much smaller rate of accumulation than previously assumed. This doesn't mean that the moon is billions of years old. Modern scientists cannot know the rate of dust accumulation in the past or the amount of dust originally on the moon. Therefore, moon dust cannot be used as an age indicator one way or the other. That's from the creationists, the people who agree with you, saying, please don't use this argument because you make the rest of us look dumb.
Okay, sure. I'll admit that they They can't know the rate of the accumulation. Sure, no problem. But there's many other things. I don't know if you guys watch some of these scientists. Have you ever heard of Thomas Kindle?
I don't.
Oh, no.
I don't think I know the name.
Well, anyway, his presentations are on YouTube about dinosaurs walking with man. And hey, by the way, you guys are from Texas. Have you not gone to see the Glen Rose riverbed?
Yes.
Where
There's
the
a bunch of batshit crazy
and
craziness
dinosaur
up there
footprints
too.
are together at the same layer, same age?
Yes, we've seen him. We're familiar with him. It's nonsense.
Okay,
And
even though you saw it, even though you said you just saw it.
Yes.
Okay. So you saw the dinosaur footprints next to human
No,
footprints.
I didn't see dinosaur. No, I didn't see.
16-inch foot.
I didn't see
human
dinosaur.
footprints, by the way.
I didn't see dinosaur footprints alongside human footprints. I saw impressions that some people are determining are dinosaur footprints alongside human footprints, but when they're investigated by actual scientists, that turns out to not be true. You really, I swear, I'm not trying to be rude or mean. Go to talkorigins.org. Do a Google search for Index of Creationist Claims. There's this huge long page where every single one of these are debunked. And in your case, you're coming up with some of the most absurd. I mean, there are some difficult questions about the origins of life on Earth, the foundation, the formulation of the planet, the origin of the universe, and things like that. There are plenty of unanswered questions, and there are areas where we just don't know enough. But when creationists, specifically young Earth creationists and people who are advocating a global flood, come in, they always come in with the absolute worst arguments. They have no science behind them. These are things that are not only, they're not things where, well, we really just don't quite know yet. They're things that we know are wrong.
Okay, well, to say that these arguments are absurd would be saying that Dr. Carl Baugh, who excavated these
absurd.
Is absurd, and I don't believe the man's a liar. He's a genuine.
I don't think he's necessarily.
scientist.
I don't think he's a liar. Why would you think that the options are either he's correct or he's a liar? The other option is either he's correct or he's wrong. He's wrong. Carl Baugh's wrong.
Okay, well then it gets down to opinion. Your opinion, my opinion.
No, it's not opinion.
He said he dug it up himself. He lifted rock off, and the footprints continued on underneath the rock. He lifted up. That hadn't been moved. Like he had to really crack that rock up.
Kevin, it doesn't come down to opinion. It comes down to scientific evidence. And either the evidence favors Baugh's interpretation or it doesn't, and it doesn't.
I really disagree, but I do appreciate your opinion. And,
I understand that Kevin, I understand that you disagree, but you're disagreeing with science, not opinion.
I disagree with that, too. And you know what's better? These prophecies being fulfilled is better than science. Science can't explain that, the Jews should have been extinct long ago. They are survived today against all odds. That is an amazing miracle from God.
Okay.
Didn't God promise Abraham and his descendants that land that they should have been on since that promise?
Didn't God prophesy that Tyre would fall and never...
And they've been disobeying like crazy and being punished. And,
that's a
because
rationalization. That wasn't in the promise.
In the desert and being spread amongst the nations of the earth, which the Bible said would happen.
Hey, you know what else they did wrong? They disagree with you on what counts as prophecy because they don't accept that Jesus guy.
Well, sure, I know, and that's why they're facing so many problems all the time. They get punished, and they will receive him in the end. The time's coming that they will accept Jesus. That's another prophecy yet to come. By the way, I want to lay you guys with a prophecy that I'm waiting for to happen right now. And no, I'm not talking about the second coming of Christ. That hasn't happened yet.
Are you sure? Because there's some post-millennialists who say it has happened.
Oh, I know, and some of them, and there are some wackos out there that we do not agree with. Not all
Boy, the
Christians
irony
agree with
is really
others,
thick right now.
But like Harold Camping, for instance, that show last month with Russell Glasser and yourself, Don Baker, you titled
The Failure of the Second Coming.
The Failure of the Second Coming should have been titled The Failure of Harold Camping's Prediction.
Yeah, you know what the biggest difference between you and Harold Camping is?
What's that?
Harold Camping admitted he was wrong and apologized.
Yeah, once he was proven wrong, we're all still waiting for the day to come.
Well, no. Your claims have been proven wrong. You just won't go look at the evidence.
Except for Israel sits there as a standing nation. I'm not wrong about that.
Well, you're correct. You're not wrong about that. But you're wrong about your connection to say that this is necessarily a miracle from God. How do you prove that? How do you demonstrate that? That's just your opinion.
I would say it's a miracle due to the fact that for 2,000 years, or approximately 2,000 years, an identity of people were spread amongst the nations of the earth and kept their identity, and they got brought back into their nation, and their Hebrew language became revived. These are all amazing.
Why is that a miracle? What is a miracle?
Because the Aztecs,
Kevin,
they even had their land. They don't exist anymore.
Kevin, what's a miracle to you? Is it just something that seems unlikely? Is it a miracle when somebody wins the lottery?
No, it's a miracle, especially when the Bible predicts something's going to happen, and it happens to a T.
So a miracle is something that can be spun to confirm the Bible. That's what a miracle is. That's my working definition of a miracle.
Perhaps. I don't know. The fact, I mean, you guys can sit there and laugh, even though Israel's a nation, and it will never die. It's always going to be a nation now that it's been put back there.
Okay, we know that's not true either, because the sun, in about 8 billion years or so, is going to engulf the entire earth, and Israel will definitely cease to be a nation at that point.
That's from an evolutionist scientific point of view, but
okay, first of all, hey Kevin, I put you on hold. Sorry, we're almost out of time. First of all, evolution deals with life. Science has nothing to do with what's going to happen to the sun. These are observed facts about the way the universe works. Don thinks that you're a Poe, that you're just calling in to be as absurd and fake as possible. I don't know whether or not that's true, but what I can say is go to Talk Origins and actually investigate whether or not your claims have any merit. And also, I'd suggest you Google Tyre, T-Y-R-E, when you're talking about biblical prophecies, because there's a prophecy in the Bible that Tyre will fall and will never be rebuilt, and yet Tyre stands today. So all of those, oh, there's a million prophecies in the Bible and they all come true. Curiously, the people who say that things like that, they cite different things as prophecy. The prophecy is a big freaking game where you go back through the Bible and you try to find something that matches something you already know exists. That's not the way prophecy works. That's not the way any legitimate prediction should work. It's not scientific, and it doesn't tell us at all about whether or not there's a God. It's wishful thinking. On that note, we got to go. We'll see people at El Arroyo shortly. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.